Welcome to Municipals or Foes at the crossroads of seriousness and silliness, a look at small town politics in rural Oklahoma. We're discussing if your municipality is really your friend or foe. I'm Lauren Fuller, along with my co host Mike Similescu. And today we're doing a year in review on 2025. So here we are, Mike. It's been another year, and we've done some big things this year that we wanted to talk about. But one of the most notable things that happened, that if you live in the city of Durant, is you noticed that I am no longer in Durant, Oklahoma, meaning I had to step down from my city council role in Durant. So we wanted to spend a few minutes to explain what happened so that you guys have the inside information and are aware of why I don't quite have the insight on some of these topics that we're going to discuss as I would like to have. So, the beginning of the year, we had re-elections, and two of our seats came available. And I put in my paperwork to rerun in early February of 2025. We did not draw competitors, and so I was automatically in. And 2 weeks later, I found out at my job that my contract was not being renewed, and there were quite a few people at my institution that were not being renewed for the following year for one reason or another. So I instantly jumped into the job market trying to look for a job. And in that circumstance, I had no idea before I put in my application to rerun. And so I spent the next few months looking for a new career path. And as fate would have it, I ended up landing a job at Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma. It was not a decision my family took lightly, knowing my role on city council. We had lived in Durant for nearly 20 years at this point, and so it was definitely a tough decision that we faced, but we thought that this was best for our family. So we quickly uprooted and moved in August of this year, and I had to then submit my resignation from city council. So as of August, I became a resident of Weatherford, Oklahoma, and couldn't continue to keep up with the dynamics of Durant. So a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, I am not as innately and intimately involved with the details as Mike is, since I am not there. I've not been in touch as closely as I would like to have been on some of these topics. And so we're going to talk about what we have done as council this past year, but we're also going to talk about these things using Mike a little bit heavier because he knows the up-to-date information on him. So as you guys notice, we changed the intro. My background has changed. If you're watching the video feed, the last time or two, because I've been in different places. And so we're excited to talk about this, and I'm excited to continue to help and contribute to this, but maybe have a little bit of a different perspective. I can have a little bit more of a critical eye standing outside of the city of Durant itself and having a little bit more broad perspective, seeing what else is going on across the state. So with that, we are going to talk about some of the big projects that City Council has addressed this year. And the first one I want to talk about, Mike, is we've got a huge project having to do with redoing Main Street and redoing some sewer lines in town that we had been working on for a long time, and funding on it finally passed this year. Where are we at with that project, and what all does it entail?
Absolutely. I think that the first project that we'll talk about is the Main Street, or the first phase of Main Street rehab, and that's usually from First United Bank down to 4th Street. That's the main rebuilding that we're planning on doing. One of the issues, obviously, everybody knows, is that part of Main Street is just not built to modern standards. We have a lot of flooding. Obviously, the road surface is not in good shape. We have sort of hit or miss as far as sidewalks, curbs, and those type of things. And some of those things are kind of wore out. So one of the things that probably over for 20 years, if you talk to previous councils, has been a vexing issue for the city of Durant. And then so we finally decided it's time to tackle this, at least the first part of this, which is probably the most expensive part of this. Rehabilitation of Main Street. So like I said, it starts from First United Bank down to 4th Street. It's actually a complete teardown. So it's down to dirt. It's actual drainage, not drainage over the road like we have, because it wasn't built with sewers and drainage, proper drainage at the time. It was just, hey, all the drainage goes into the street, and it just like a lot of the parts of this town. So that over the last 40, 50 years has really eroded at the road surface and the utilities and all that stuff there. So that is our first project, and the previous council had started the work towards that. But it didn't include drainage, and we decided that we can't have a new road without proper drainage, because what's going to happen is going to look like the old road before long. So that's a extremely expensive project. The drainage itself is about half the cost of the project, and that is a drainage that will take all the water from Main Street and then drain it down to Choctaw Creek. There's a couple of areas which are narrow and will need to be widened. It'll go under 2 railroad tracks and into Choctaw Creek. So that's a big project for the drainage part. And then also the pretty much complete rebuilding of Main Street with concrete streets, sidewalks, landscaping, all the things that come with the rehabilitation there, over $30 million worth total, which sounds like a lot of money. But, if you look back at the cost previously, it would have been half that if we did it 10 years ago. And if you talk to the people on council previous to that, it would have been a lot less than that. So there isn't really a time to waste anymore. I know we have that half-cent extension that we passed, plus we've been blessed with a pretty good sales tax collections the last couple of years. So we do have some money to borrow to do those things. Also, you talked about water lines. We need extra capacity south of town, and we need a big water line that needs to be built. That's about, oh man, I can't remember, is it close to $25 million or something like that? It changes every time we talked about it. It started at 15 like 2 years ago, and I think it's probably more than that. So we did start the process to fund that as well, plus Main Street. So those are two big things that are coming, and it's going to, everybody's excited about the idea until we actually get to doing it. We've had previous experiences with university and all that. So I think it'll go better this time. I think it's a bigger project. A lot more companies are interested in bidding for it. With the Roosevelt Bridge, probably going to be on the same timeline or close to it. There'll be more companies interested in bidding for this. And like I said, it's a bigger project. So I think we will have better results this time around. We're still in the engineering phase. At least I think the road part of it is done for the most part, but the drainage part is still being worked on. And I think it should be done hopefully by the beginning of 2026 or so. Engineering tends to be a little bit slow sometimes. So, but big engineering firms working on that. So we should hopefully get some good results from those.
Well, you hit on some good topics there, Mike, because one of the things that we had discussed, and I had been involved in these conversations, was the drainage. And people don't realize how important that is. Everybody that lives in our area knows how bad that area floods and continues to erode the road there. And so we wanted to make sure that we were protecting our road, that we were thinking long-term here. And like you said, it had been kicked down the road. The can had been kicked down the road long enough, and the costs were only going up. And what a lot of people don't realize is how expensive these projects are. And you mentioned the half-cent tax that we were able to garner this year to go towards infrastructure. And yes, even though some of that is going towards long-term debt, one of the things that I remember talking about was we were only with half-cent. That was only like $250,000 a year. And I remember us discussing how much it costs to pave, like overlay 1 mile of road. Do you remember the number on that, Mike?
About $400,000. It's
about $400,000 to do a mile of road. Right. And so I was like sitting there looking at everybody else going, well, we're so excited about this half-cent, and it doesn't even do a mile of road. Right. And so to do these big projects, I mean, we were talking about another road. I think it was Larkspur. It needs to completely be torn down and redone. And it is a thoroughfare right there next to Victory Life. A lot of people travel on it to get to their homes. And so that project alone was $8 or $9 million. And I was like, people don't understand
Right.
how much these projects cost. And when you talk about $250,000, we would
Right.
have to save that for years to even tackle one project. And so when everybody wants to see progress, we have to make that decision.
And then it's double the price, right?
Yeah,
After
well,
if
then
you
the price
save,
goes
there's
up
no
by the
way you
time
can
you've saved
save
it.
there's no way you can pay as you go with these big projects. It's not possible. But
Right.
unless you're blessed with a ton of income, but that's just not our case here. So
So
unless we have a big, hey, somebody donated some money or the state gives us a bunch of money or we find a way to pay for it, some of it's going to have to be borrowed.
right. So we are tackling this in the aspect of trying to get these projects done before the cost goes up, leveraging the money we do have coming in, but knowing that, yes, we have $250,000. Do you want us to continue to put potholes in, or do you want us to fix the road? And we decided to fix the roads. And yes, it's going into only a handful of projects, but when you talk about the drainage, I mean, people don't realize how expensive it is to dig that drainage under railroads, and dealing with the railroad companies in and of itself is not an easy task. And so this is huge. I mean, $15 million worth of drainage is crazy. But again, do you spend $15 million on a road just to have to replace it in 10
Right.
years, or it need replacing because you didn't do it correctly? Like, that's irresponsible also. So I mean, I think we're tackling it the best we can, but unfortunately, people don't understand the process and how long it takes, the engineering, the funding, all of the pieces that have to come together. And then they get mad when they realize that you're not paying cash for things when that's
Right.
that's out of the realm of possibility
It's
if
not
you want
possible, right?
anything to get done.
6 months extra to deal with the railroads. That's what the engineering said when they said, "How we have 2 railroads to deal with." That's going to add another 6 months, maybe a year to the designing and the construction, just because of the red tape with those guys. So, I mean, that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And with this sort of government type stuff, it takes a while. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just it's difficult when you don't have a ton of money to work with. Though, like I said, we're kind of blessed in a way with the growth and the increase in the collections. But then at the same time, inflation's gone. Part of that's inflation also, and that makes it difficult because everything else has gotten more expensive, even though we have more collections,
Yeah.
and we don't have a ton of revenue sources to pay for those type of things. So, but like I said, we do our best and try to leave it better for the next people.
I think what I like about this project the most is it's economically also going to positively impact the community. I mean, if you have a beautiful corridor to downtown, how much more is that going to allow people that are getting off the highway to invite them to continue driving down? Because we've all been in those neighborhoods where you're like, oh, this is getting a little sketchy, maybe we should turn around.
Sure.
And if we can make that corridor beautiful, I know it's going to help those businesses there on Main Street and into downtown garner more business. And I think that's what's
Sure.
important. And people don't understand that when we invest in those areas, what it does is it then has an economic return in those tax dollars for the city in order to fund more projects. And so this is definitely something that's not just because people are complaining, but it has multifaceted outcomes to it that are going to be a positive impact for the community. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see how it turns out. And I still want to come have some input on the landscaping to make sure it's beautiful, right? Because that's a very important aspect of it. But
Sure, absolutely.
Also that pipe that we are running all the way south. What most of our residents don't understand is the water pressure we have south of town. A lot of the water does indeed go to the Choctaw Nation. They require a lot of water. And in order for us to build any more businesses, any more housing that is down on the south side of town on the bypass, we have to have more water. There's no way around it. We cannot continue to build until there is water supply. And so we have that bypass now. And I've been talking to people about how we are going to grow and develop that area and make sure that we have other exits and areas to put gas stations. But again, that's an economic driver, but we have to have the water in order to let those businesses come in and to be there. And so again, yes, it's costing a ton of money, but this is vital to not only being able to build housing, but build businesses on that side of town. So another great investment of that money.
I do. And that one, I think, is only about a year's worth of work, and it doesn't affect the Main Street project, so it can be concurrent. I think that also benefits Choctaw Nation as well, because they're pretty active down in that part of town with building homes and also, increasing their use of their on their property there. So,
Yeah.
I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, I think and that's just the expenses of things is just crazy how it just goes up and up. So I do think we're excited about that. That's not really like stuff's buried in the ground, but in the long term, it's going to be beneficial. Like you said, it should drive some of that growth down that part of town. It's already started in some, I think, but that's will really push it forward.
Well, let's talk about another project that has to do with our roads. Is we have had a project on the plate for quite a while to put in a stoplight there on First Street in Gerlach near one of our new elementary schools, and it keeps getting brought up and postponed and
Sure.
figuring out what's going on. And the main thing there was we have some major utility lines, the water lines that run right next to First Street that have to be moved.
Pretty much all the major water lines branch off from there to the city of Durant, so those all need to be moved.
Yeah, don't realize is our water source is north of town, and that is where it comes into town, and that's where the major water lines are, and they have to be moved, and it is not cheap. And I remember having a conversation even with a local Boy Scout about what can they do to make sure this project gets done, because the safety of our students, parents coming in and out of that intersection, it has become quite chaotic. And how do we resolve that, and what can they do to help? And I just had to look at them and I go, listen, we understand, but at this point it's a money issue because it costs a lot of money to move those lines. And now we're to the point where it's ODOT, right? ODOT wants to make sure that we're doing it in the summertime so it doesn't disrupt school, because could you imagine the chaos that would ensue if we tried to shut that intersection down during school? And of course, the costs keep rising on it. Mike, what else can you tell us about it?
So yeah, the project to move the water lines is probably the same cost as the project to widen the street and put the stoplight in. So $1 million or more now, I think, for that. The nice thing is that ODOT will let us almost kind of take a zero interest loan in a way. So they'll roll the cost of it into the project and we'll pay them back, as opposed to having the money to do it right away, which we can do that. We actually have probably the money to do it, but it'd be easier if we can pay it back just, no interest or low interest is great. So that is helpful. The last time I heard they were talking about in the summer of 26, but like I said, it was supposed to be summer of 25. So we'll have to get some clarification on that because I was unsure exactly. And then as we look after that, hopefully we'll start to look at the rest of that road after this part's done. But it is an important project as we go forward here because that's a congested area and that all needs some upgrades.
Right. Okay. And another project that has been worked on and approved has been an animal shelter for the city of Durant. And what most people have not done is visited our animal shelter. Currently, It is out near the dump.
It's at the dump, right? It is a dump, Durant. Right? So it's a good place for it because it looks like a dump.
And it is a glorified shed out there with some dog kennels in it, and it is in a rough shape. And if you've never been, I highly encourage you to go out there and check it out. It is not a hospitable place to be, and if you ever visit, you'd be outraged at it. And so for this reason, the city of Durant voted to go ahead and fund a new animal shelter. And so that is in the engineering phase still. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, I think about $1.6 million is what it's going to cost, at least when they voted for it, or when I guess we approved it. So we'll have to get the official costs on that. Some of that, we don't have all of that. So some of that's going to be some fundraising, and some of our leaders in the community say they're going to go fundraise. So we'll see once I think we're waiting for the actual final cost and to see what the design is so they can start working on some fundraising. I think some of the money the Choctaws donate a certain amount of money for community development and stuff that they every year. And I think some of that money may be earmarked for this as well. So we'll kind of go forward from there. But yeah, it is something that the initial facility or plans, kind of preliminaries that they showed us, just kind of some sketches. I mean, it looks like a good facility for this type of situation. And I think that'll hopefully move some of this issues with the sort of like third world animal shelter that we have. I think because it is an embarrassment, right? If you go there, it's sad, and it's it's subpar doesn't even seem to describe it, right? So I don't know. We'll see as we go forward, but that's kind of the thought process. I don't have a timeline exactly on that one. I'm hopeful the engineering, the planning architecture will be done hopefully soon here at the beginning of the year or in the next few months after once 26 comes by.
And again, like you said, and I want to emphasize, is a lot of people get bent out of shape when they see the city spending so much money on an animal shelter. But what we are trying to do also is a lot of that being fundraised, because there are a lot of people in our community passionate about fundraising for this because they see the dire need. But we want to reiterate that the city is not picking up the whole tab. We do have Choctaw donating. We are looking to do some fundraising efforts for it. So it is not being 100% funded by the city by any means. But with that, it is needed, but you also have to think, when you have a beautiful animal shelter, and I say beautiful, functioning at this point in time, it allows more people to come and adopt those dogs and allows more of that rescue going on. Nobody wants to go out to our dump to see these dogs. They're not being rescued like they should be. And if we have a facility that encourages people to come out and visit and adopt dogs, then that's going to also help that front. So for all you animal lovers out there, we are trying to make sure that we're taking care of our animals also. Okay. Next topic, we have a pretty big grocer coming to town that has recently been announced. Albertsons has bought the old, what was the last thing?
It was Alorica, right? The old Alorica building.
We had an old Alorica building that has been sitting vacant for years that has finally been bought and bargained for by Albertsons to repurpose that building. And we are excited about that because we were kind of involved with the bargaining and agreements there to make that happen, because everybody knows that you need groceries. And even though we have a Walmart and we have a few other grocery stores in town, we had studies done that showed that we still had over 40% of people leaving our town to buy groceries because there wasn't enough in town or wasn't the selection they wanted, whatever their reason was. There is room for more grocers. So we have an Albertsons. Tell us, what's the update on that, Mike?
So there should be a groundbreaking hopefully in the new year. Groundbreaking here in the new year. I think they had closed on the building Albertson has. So we should hopefully hear some things very soon, hopefully in January, February. And then usually I think they said by the end of the year would be when it would be done, I think is what they said. By the end of 26 is kind of what the timeline is, which is exciting for everybody involved. And like you said, when I first came here, there was more grocery stores and less people when I moved here in 2010. And now we have the reverse. And like I said, you're losing people down to Sherman or Denison. If we can keep some of these folks here, that helps the city coffers. That helps the make it a more desirable place to live. So I think those are really big things that are happening in town, at least from a retail standpoint. I think that's a big one. So we're excited. And we're also, and the other thing I think is important to say, we're sort of trying new things. We're using different economic incentives, which we hadn't in the past. And one of the things that people don't understand about retail in Oklahoma is that it's really the only source of revenue for cities. So it's a really cutthroat business because every city wants retail there because it's going to help for your infrastructure and all that stuff. Police, fire, all the things that you need. So,
and like you said, it helps through tax dollars, right? What it's happening is driving more tax revenue to fund those things.
Yes. So more sales tax coming to our town. Also, people come in, they'll spend at other places. So like I said, I think it's a good plan. Now, usually, so we used a little bit of a sales tax rebate as an incentive. So over a couple of years, some of those infrastructure improvements, those kinds of things will be paid for from the sales tax that's only generated from the Albertsons, not from outside. And then eventually those tax dollars will go to the city. Very low risk because there isn't anything we have to put up. So they're the ones that are, if things don't go well and they put the construction in, they're the ones that are on the hook for it. So in the end, we keep the infrastructure and they keep a little bit of the sales tax for a few years, and then in the end, we all win because it moves the needle forward a little bit.
Right. And that's one thing that we have to make sure is clear for our listeners is when we offer these incentives, essentially what we are doing is we have bargained with them and looked at the cost of them coming in and investing in this building and investing in our town and what that looks like to make it viable for them, but also works for our community. And so what we have agreed to is when they pay the sales tax to us, we are essentially going to refund it back to them for a certain amount of money until they've reached that cap. And then we will then collect the excess after that. So what we're doing is we're saying the long-term revenue from tax is worth the short-term rebate or return on that for them to be in our community, because we see the value in how much tax dollars they are going to bring in for us. And so that's one thing we want to point out is, yes, we've offered an incentive. It is rather small for a project like this, but it is going to be a good trial run for this community.
It is, and that gives us a new ways of thinking about things. And like I said, it gives the idea that, hey, Durant's open for business, and we need that, because
and
we're
what most
struggling
people
with
don't even know is Albertsons is not in Oklahoma. They just opened their first store in Ardmore, and we are the second location in all of Oklahoma that Albertsons is coming to. And so this is exciting for our community.
They have left. They had left the state about a decade ago or something like that, and they're returning to Oklahoma after being out for a while. So this is exciting because, like I said, a lot of communities were looking for this. So it's big. Even Denison has struggled for years to get a grocery store. So this is a big win for us.
And this second exciting thing is, not only is Albertsons coming to town, but so is Aldi's. Aldi's is coming in where the old Big Lots building was, which is another grocer, again, just around the corner from Albertsons, but showing that there is enough for everybody. There is plenty of grocery needs to fund all of these. So those are two amazing grocers that
Aldi's a little different type of grocery store. A lot of people go down the one in Sherman. So it is for a lot of folks, it is a really good grocery store, and they do go there. So if we can keep the people that go to Sherman every week to go to Aldi, I mean, that's a big win for us, because those tax dollars are spent here in Durant and not in Sherman. So I think that we're excited about that as well. And then also, I think we're getting an Ollie's as well, which is a sort of a kind of a Big Lots type store, is how it was described when we talked about it at council. They're going to get a very small rebate, a sales tax rebate for a little while, but they will be going over next to Harbor Freight. And that's exciting. That will keep that shopping center a good anchor there, and then provide some of the similar goods that Big Lots used to. Then, since Big Lots has gone out of business, Ollie's has gone in a lot of these communities where Big Lots used to be and set up shops. So, like I said, rising tide lifts all boats. So the more retail, the more sales tax that we're generating, the better we are for our town. So.
Right. This is just getting the ball rolling. We're really excited to have more retailers in town. Like we said, more retailers means more sales tax dollars, which means we can make more repairs on those potholes for you guys.
Right.
Another one in our neighboring county is Marshall County has some big things going on. Mike, what has happened over there with their TIF?
Yeah, so we did a show a couple months ago with the folks from Point Vista, and one of the things they were wanting to pass is a TIF. So it's pretty much it was for their hotel over there. That was a Hard Rock Hotel. And initially the county commissioners voted it down 2-1. Point Vista decided that they were going to do a petition to put it on the ballot, and they put it on one of the November ballots, and it passed. So they will. So now that the TIF has passed, they can sort of get those infrastructure commitments for the county there and for the city of Kingston, which will be helpful, and for the Lake Texoma area. Will be interesting to see. A lot of people are skeptical, and I understand that. But I think for the low risk, high reward, I think it was worth giving it a shot and see how they do. So we're kind of excited about that. It's not really a direct issue, but it's neighboring, and it brings more traffic through our town potentially. So I think it'll be good for the whole community, and also with the new bridge going in across the lake in the next few years, I think that will add to that as well. So a little bit more development at the lake, which will sort of provide some more jobs and opportunities across the region.
Of course, and like you said, that's going to draw people through Durant, and I think that I'm positive you will see a lot more development on the west side of Durant, trying to garner and catch that traffic on the highway.
I agree. I think you're right about, and that's really a corridor that has a lot of benefits, right? Big road, a lot of open space to build. It's got a lot of things already in place there that it can develop really nicely. So.
Well, to wrap us up, Mike, let's talk about the one final issue we have. Since I have left Durant, we have an upcoming election in Durant to fill my seat, and we've got 3 people who have put in their candidacy to run for that election. Mike, do you remember the names of the candidates?
I do. So we've got 3 running, Clint Morrison, Lisa Jensen, and Johnny Mathers Jr. are the three folks that are running for Lauren's old seat in Ward 2. Once they get elected, whoever gets elected, they will serve out the rest of her 3-year term, and then kind of go from there. The election is Tuesday, February 10th. It's been kind of quiet, Christmas and all that, holidays coming up. So I think they're kind of laying low for a little while, but I would assume right after the new year is going to be a big 6-week sprint to the finish line. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk with them on here if they're going to come on. We'll invite them each to see what they think and kind of see their thought processes about Durand, what they'd like to see, and what their visions are for the council and for the town. Will be interesting to hear that. We always like a good campaign, right? So so we'll see what they have to say, but we're excited about that. It's kind of tough sometimes when it's 2-2. Most of the time we agree pretty well, but there are a few votes where it's like, hey, we could use a tie-breaking vote here. Or if somebody's not there, then all of a sudden we have a question. There's only 3 of us, the quorum, and then all this other stuff. So it'll be nice to have a full council running again, because it is a little bit lonely with only 4.
I miss you guys already. It makes me sad not to be in there bossing you guys around.
Right.
But so, what I do
go ahead.
To remind people is with this election, and it is a little bit different, is this seat is for Ward 2, which is a very specific section of the city. So the person running has to live in Ward 2. However, the whole entire city population gets to vote for this seat. So even if you don't live in Ward 2, you still get to vote on this person. And so we encourage everybody who lives in Durant city limits to get out and vote on Tuesday, February 10th for this candidacy, and make sure that you guys go vote. It is citywide, so get out and vote.
Yep, citywide vote, and then hopefully we'll get that squared away. Anything? You were only in council about 2 years, right? You did 2 years, about 2 years.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you feel? What did you accomplish? What do you think you accomplished? And then what do you feel like you could have done more of? I know it wasn't a long time, but I was just curious to see how what you felt like your last what your years were like on council.
Big question there, Mike. So I 100% enjoyed my time on council and being involved in the discussions behind the closed doors, seeing what's going on. There's a lot of things that happen that our hands are tied, or that legal precedence takes charge, that we kind of walked into wanting to kind of push our way through, right? And be a bull in the china shop and just like make things happen. And then you realize really quickly that there is a lot of red tape and there's a lot of process and procedures. And even if you want to do something, if the city manager has a differing opinion, that there comes a time when you have to really kind of work together and make sure everybody's on the same page. And sometimes that means compromise. And sometimes that means that you don't always get things your way. You realize that in order for other things to work, right? You hear the terms politics. You got to politic a little bit. Well, you do. Like, you have to get on people's good sides. You have to be able to get people to see things from your perspective. You have to kind of have that emotional intelligence in order for people to really make the best decisions, but that doesn't always mean that your project gets done first. Everybody has to be on the same page. There were plenty of times where we might have all agreed on something, but the city manager maybe at the time didn't agree with us, and it really halted things versus what we are allowed really to tell the city manager to do versus how we are teammates and we work together. And just those dynamics really made it interesting to kind of navigate how things work and how it's not always easy to do things. Like we have talked about, people get upset when they see you're spending money on the animal shelter, not potholes. But what they don't see is the hard work you're doing to fund those projects, but they're not getting done today, they're getting done next year. Whereas the animal shelter, we're fundraising now, and they can happen simultaneously, and you can pursue both of those, and it doesn't impact necessarily the outcome of either one. And so it was very eye-opening, and I miss it, and I'm sad that I'm not there, but I understand I'm where I'm supposed to be right now, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how I can get involved in this community and put some of that experience to use.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Like I said, it was good working with you, and we'll continue this podcast, and we'll be interested to see in the new year. We'll branch out a little bit to kind of talk to some of the state officials about what their thoughts are about municipal government and funding and those type of things. We have an election year coming up, so we'll have hopefully get some of those men and women on here to kind of talk to us a little bit about their vision of municipal government and funding and all this kind of stuff. So look forward to that in the new year as we branch out a little bit more, as we talk about other things. And then we'll kind of see how things go around here. And we'll do some updates as well.
Of course. Well, it has been great. And we hope you guys stay tuned in to listen for further updates.